Good evening today. Hold on. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. The time is 5 p.m. The regular meeting of the following will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the City as Housing Assets Successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Becerra. Councilmember Gomez.
Buenas tardes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Present.
Mayor Jones.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. Madam Clerk, before we move on to introduction to public comments, are there any requests to speak?
There are no requests, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so the public comment period from chambers is now completed, and as for our Zoom audience, the chair offers a brief moment in accordance with AB 361 to address technical difficulties should there be any. Madam Clerk, will you please set the timer for 30 seconds?
"30 seconds has elapsed. I still have no speakers.
Okay, thank you. The public comment period is now closed, and going to move on to the declaration of closed session items by our city attorney, Mr. D. Bortnowski.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. We have 3 items this evening. 2 are existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. With respect to item A, the case name and case number is set forth on the agenda. With respect to item B, disclosure at this point would jeopardize settlement negotiations. The third item is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2 and pursuant to 54956.9E3. The facts and circumstances related to that are fully set forth on the agenda. To the extent there is reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or the commencement of the regular 6 o'clock session.
Thank you, Mr. D. Bortnowski. All right, we are in recess to closed session. We'll resume open session at 6 p.m.
that I know what they look like. What's that?
You, of course, shocker. But you'll have to fight it out with John. You'll have to fight it out with John.
Deborah, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah. You made it just in time. Good evening. Today is Tuesday, October 5th, 2021. The time is 6 p.m. We are resuming the regular session of our regular meeting, the following of which will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the City is Housing Asset Successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you kindly call roll?
Councilmember Becerra.
Here.
Councilmember Gomez.
Buenas tardes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Present.
Mayor Jones.
Here. Thank you. We have a quorum. Moving on to closed session announcements by our city attorney, Mr. DeBornowski.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. We had 3 items this evening. 2 were existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D1. The existing litigation on item A is set forth on the agenda along with a case number. On item B, a disclosure of the information would have jeopardized settlement discussions. On item C, it is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9 D2, and the facts and circumstances related to that are set forth on the agenda. At this time, there is no reportable action with respect to any of those items.
Thank you. All right, we're now going to move on to our invocation offered this evening by Pastor Paul Gastonian of High Desert Church. And then that's going to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance offered by our Police Captain, John Wickham. Pastor, welcome.
All right, thank you for having me. Would you guys bow our heads as we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you today for our council and those that work and serve in the city of Victorville. I would pray for wisdom today, the conversations. I pray, Lord, for each and every one of these council members, that they would do what is right, do what is just. I pray for protection over their families. I pray for understanding to the community. I pray, Lord, as the world is crazy in so many ways, that they would bring sanity to our town here that we love so much. I thank you for each and every one of them, their perspectives. Thank you that they are made in the image of God, and I would pray a blessing over them, even in our council meeting today. We just ask for your blessing here in Victorville, and we ask these things in your son's name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Captain Wickham, everyone please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, will you kindly present our agenda and any revisions there too?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no revisions to the agenda.
Thank you. And now we're going to move on to conflicts of interest declarations, council members.
None.
Seeing and hearing none, we're going to move on to the introduction to public comments. Before I do that, Madam Clerk, are there requests to speak?
Yes, there are, Madam Mayor.
All right, with that said, welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Victorville City Council. Your city council is interested in your ideas and opinions and furthermore endeavors to incorporate them into its deliberations. At the same time, the council must be able to carry out its business in an organized and efficient manner free from material disruption. Therefore, this meeting will be administered in accordance with Government Code Section 54957.9, as well as the council's established policies and procedures. Individual speakers may address the council once during the public comment period for up to 3 minutes and are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. All testimony is limited to the items posted on the agenda or those matters that are within the subject jurisdiction of the city council. Individual speakers may address the council once per public comment period and once per each public hearing item for up to 3 minutes. Additional time may be allocated for appeal hearings in accordance with the city's adopted policies and procedures manual. All testimony must be directed solely to the council. Open meeting laws do not permit council members to engage in dialogue during the public comment periods. Speakers are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Whether attending this meeting in person or via Zoom, once comments are invited, the speaker will be called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. The speaker will state the item number or numbers that will be addressed or that the subject is a non-agendized matter. Audience members may not disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, and those who do are subject to removal from the meeting pursuant to Penal Code 403. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. Madam Clerk, may we have our first speaker from chamber, if there are any?
Chad Collins.
Good evening and welcome. Did you have a particular item that you wish to address?
Yes, I did. I put together a little just a small little presentation for you guys.
Is it an item posted on the agenda or a non-agendized matter? Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor and representatives of Victorville. My name is Chad Collins. I have been a resident to the city of Victorville and the High Desert community since December of 2012, when me and my family decided to uproot from a small 3-bedroom apartment in Anaheim, California, and purchase our first home here, where we have more than fallen in love with this area, and most importantly, the High Desert community as a whole. Shortly after we had moved to the area, me and my wife were driving around one evening and stumbled upon the Old Town Route 66 sign and thought how awesome it was. Sadly, that moment was followed by a multitude of abandoned commercial buildings where we stared out the window in confusion. We simply could not comprehend why such a beautiful downtown area would be in such disarray. It was at that moment that we knew we wanted to do something to turn this situation around and bring life back into this amazing and beautiful downtown area. With all of our travels around the country and the world, we knew that the one thing that was lacking in this downtown space was art. As we looked around, we could see no art anywhere, and we knew that the one commonality in every amazing downtown area was always big, beautiful artwork. Everywhere you turn in every amazing downtown community, there's always art and color, which is why we have come before you today. We have put together an organization called the VVAC, which stands for the Victor Valley Art Coalition. The organization is made up of artists like myself, my wife standing next to me, Jessica, and other amazing artists that we have met along our journeys through life and travels. Our mission is to put some life back into the downtown, Old Town area, with art being the main focal point. We feel that with something so simple as art, color, creativity, and subliminal messaging in a positive light, it can literally turn a hopeless city into a flourishing tourist destination almost overnight. When we create a tourist destination, then that means people will simply stop here in Old Town just to see the artwork and take selfies, just as they do in other popular downtown areas. When that happens, we feel then local residents and entrepreneurs such
You have 30 seconds.
You have 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Entrepreneurs such as myself would want to purchase or lease some of the existing buildings to build cool shops, trendy places to eat and gather and whatnot. When this happens, then this might also fix the homeless problem as well, because it's pretty rare to see people commit crimes in heavily populated areas. And I also don't know if they would want to use drugs around a bunch of people walking the streets looking at the art and window shopping. With all
Your
of
time
this,
is up.
You can go ahead and finish your sentence.
oh, sorry, I got a tiny bit more.
Okay, sir, I'm going to allow you to just finish your sentence.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, what I'd love to do is we would just love to schedule a time that would be suitable so we can give you guys a visual presentation of examples of exactly what we're trying to accomplish with us.
Yes, thank you so much. And we appreciate your coming before us. If you can contact the city clerk's office,
Okay.
we can see what we can do to arrange a meeting. Thank you so much for coming before us. Thank you. Madam Clerk,
I'd like to be sought for clarification.
there's no clarification to be made on an audience member.
You're
Madam Clerk, the
assuming
next
I'm not
Deanne
asking for
Hutchins.
clarification on
member has not
them.
been recognized.
Okay, well, I'd like to seek clarification.
The member has not asked to be recognized.
Okay, so then
Deanne Hutchins.
I want to know if I can speak.
You may not. Madam Clerk,
No, as a public
That-
commenter. That's the clarification that I'm asking.
you know that you can speak as
No,
an
I don't,
audience
because you
member.
said as in the chamber. So I don't know if you changed the rules, and if I don't do it now, I'm gonna miss
Madam
my
Clerk,
point.
Madam Clerk, please proceed. Member Gomez, the chair and or the city attorney is happy to go over these kinds of things with you once the meeting's concluded, but for now, we're going to proceed. Madam Clerk,
Ms. Hutchins, go ahead.
welcome, Ms. Hutchins.
Can you hear me with the sound? Okay.
Yes, if you speak really closely to the microphone.
I need to read this. Good evening, council members and mayor. During a recent event recognizing women's achievement, every local town or city was acknowledged as providing a certificate and a representative was introduced.
Ms. Hutchins, can you hold for just a moment? Madam Clerk, can you stop the time? We're not going to have side conversations behind the dais. Ms. Gomez, will you please take your seat? If there's clarification needed, it will be made after the meeting is concluded as it relates to AB 361. Please proceed, Ms. Hutchins. I apologize for the interruption.
Okay, let me back up. I will say that every city or town was acknowledged as providing a certificate and a representative was introduced, except Victorville. I emailed
The city attorney is speaking also to the city manager, but
Ms.
the mayor
Gomez
did
has
not
not been
recognize that. So
recognized.
I
You
just
will
want
sit down.
fairness, okay?
Council
I just
member
want
is
to
out
be
of
fair
order.
and let's give her her entire time
Since
because
my
she's been
apologies
interrupted several times by you as well.
Being counted against you, please proceed.
Thank you. I emailed Mr. Metzler, and his reply was that according to the Policy and Procedures Manual, Chapter 8, Section 5, C1, certificates are only to be presented at a council meeting or other event where the mayor or his or her designee will be in attendance to present the certificate. Because the mayor was not going to be present and no formal invitation was received, we issued letters of recognition in order to still recognize those individuals during the ceremony. When I looked up that portion of the Policy and Procedures Manual, it indicated it was referencing such things as small-scale ribbon cuttings, grand openings, and open house events, which none of these were that. I assume every city received the same information, but only Victorville saw it as extraneous. A letter of recognition was issued, but no one attending knew that. Not to say that this was the most important event, but as a proud resident of Victorville, waiting to hear my city publicly recognize these triumphs and hearing Adelanto, Apple Valley, and Hesperia, but not Victorville, was awkward. Does the section of the manual truly address this type of event? There are numerous actions that can be taken to promote Victorville. I look forward to witnessing improvements that the passage of Measure P provides with the addition of code enforcement and police officers. What about identifying and responding to occasions that give Victorville an opportunity to shine? Has our city become willing to accept a backseat to our surrounding communities? I know that we have Victorville Connect. I know that we have a Facebook page and other social media events, but how many people see them? How many people know that they exist? How many people look at them? It just seems that our surrounding towns and cities are much more effective at promoting themselves. Victorville has many good things going on. Let's be loud and proud of our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchins. Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, that concludes in-chamber requests.
No, because I said that earlier, but I wasn't recognized.
So Member Gomez, it was not my understanding, it was my understanding that you were trying to ask a question about the same information that all the council members received. Does the member wish to speak as a member of the audience?
Well, I was seeking recognition.
Does Member Gomez wish to speak as a member of
Yes,
the
I do.
audience? You're free to proceed down to the podium. The audience member is advised that Councilmember Gomez is going to be speaking during public comments as a member of the audience, and she does so without the necessarily the credibility and or weight of her office as a council member. Those are decisions that the audience will have to make, and she does so in her speaking without color of authority. Please proceed, Ms. Gomez.
Yes, my name is Blanca Gomez, and I was elected in 2016 and reelected in 2020, the longest member in this field. And nobody takes my authority. Doesn't matter if the mayor says you got to put weight, because I'm still Blanca Gomez, council member of the city of Victorville. And I will always be, despite the fact that Ms. Jones decides not to have that. So with the weight, we want to put weight on her so that when she talks, she's not speaking to the color of her authority either, even she sits behind the dais. What I want to really tell the public is that there's a lack of civic engagement. And it's not fair that we consistently have to use certain strategies or methods to get the least amount of civic engagement. If you look behind us, very few people can sit there. So if they bring a partner or a child, they're not going to be able to sit together with their child or their kid. And that really disenfranchises and continues to disenfranchise. And so the only way this can change is by changing what we see in front of us, what we believe are representatives of the city of Victorville. It's clearly not representative of a lot of the members that we have out that are working class or that need to have their voices heard, especially those that speak different languages and have different cultural understandings of what it is to come in the public space and really place on the record what it is that they're placing. También quiero decirles en español lo mismo. Mi nombre es Blanca Gómez, soy la concejal. Desde 2016 fui electa en 2020. Soy la persona que ha sido elegida más veces que ninguna otra mujer que está aquí ahorita enfrente de nosotros. Quiero decirles que la manera que va a cambiar todo es cambiando los asientos de las caras que tenemos enfrente de nosotros. Si miran detrás de nosotros, tenemos muy pocas personas que pueden venir a sentarse y ese es un método y una estrategia para cortar las voces de muchas personas que son trabajadoras, especialmente que tienen diferentes culturas y que hablan muy diferente. Another thing that I would like to put on the record and place on the record, which is really important, but our public members don't realize, is if I, Blanca Gomez, council member of the city of Victorville, decide to ask a question for clarification, I get shut down and it gets reinterpreted with a lot of viciousness. There's no Christianity in that. When you see the city attorney talking to the city manager, they don't get reprimanded. So there's this thing called harassment. There's workplace violence harassment that I've been continuous for the last 5 years. And it's very unfortunate. And so what you're trying to do is just disenfranchise the community, but we're going to keep fighting because the community is made of more than 2 people, more than 3, more than 4, more than 5. Somos más de 4, más de 5 personas que hacemos el enganche de qué es lo que es la representación. Desafortunadamente, cuando yo hablo o quiero clarificación, se me calla. Cuando voy a preguntar preguntas no se me quieren contestar, pero tú ves al manager y al abogado hablando y nunca se le llama la atención.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Mr. D. Bortnowski, has the chair acted consistently and discharged her duties in accordance with her obligations as the presiding officer?
I believe so, and also in accordance with the policy manual.
Thank you. And so just for purposes of clarification, it's necessary that all council members are behind the dais and actively involved in the process. And so when a council member leaves and has a conversation with another, it's distracting to other council members. That's why the chair does not allow side conversations to the extent that the city manager and the city attorney have to share a word with another to conduct.
Yes, but you
business
can
in
do
the-
side conversations and texting, right?
Member Gomez has not been
You do.
recognized by the chair.
You
and
do,
is out of
side
order.
conversations.
The chair does not text during the meetings. Moving on from that.
Yeah, I have it on video.
Member Gomez again is out of order and
Just like
please,
you
it
are.
would-
You don't have to respond to what I'm saying.
We're going to move on to the audience. I apologize for this indecorous behavior.
Yes, I
Madam Clerk,
apologize
are
as
there
well.
requests to
We don't have
speak?
good leadership up here.
Madam Mayor, there are no additional members in the council chambers. However, I do have a Zoom.
Thank you. So with that said, then our public comment period from chambers is now completed and we're going to move on to our Zoom audience. Madam Clerk, the first speaker.
Karima Abdul.
Good evening, Ms. Abdul. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I am calling today about some real issues that are really for the working class. Actually putting money back into the pockets of the working class, which I've heard a lot of talk about, but not so much action. So I'm proposing Victor Valley Transit Authority is under a bus crisis situation. They are canceling routes, rerouting things, offering a $2,000 bonus to new hires. For those who aren't aware, that's a lifeline for our elderly community, disabled community, a lot of other workers. The Transit Authority is a lifeline for a lot of people. So I have a few proposals. Basically, I would like to see the 2,000 given first upon hiring or a month after, and then a second 2,000 added for retention purposes. So after their 3-month or 6-month timeline for new hires. And I also would like to see us be really smart and show how much we care about keeping the city of Victorville on the road, even those who may not be able to afford their own vehicle or for whichever other reasons, disabilities, elderly for safety reasons, if they are not able to be on the road. I want us to see us support them. And so I would propose that regular bus drivers also get the $2,000 immediate bonus and also get the $2,000 retention bonus in 3 to 6 months from now, because this is a really important issue for me. I was a bus rider back in the day, and I completely agree with the issues, and so many other students and people in Victorville rely on the buses or would like, or at least like to have the option of using the buses. I feel like this is one of the biggest issues going in Victorville right now. And I'm sad to see that it's not being prioritized, that we're seeing interfighting and feuding instead of service to the people of Victorville. And I also agree there should be no conversations. You are paid to represent the public. Anything personal needs to be on your own time. I would also add that to my comments as well. So thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing more money in the hands of the working class, particularly our bus drivers. And that is all. Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Abdul. Madam Clerk.
The next speaker is Brett.
Good evening, Brett. Welcome to our meeting. Madam Clerk, is there an agenda item number noted on this? There's no way.
Not
Okay.
for the Zoom.
So Brett, are you going to speak to a particular agenda item or a non-agendized matter? Oh, Brett, we're not able to hear you. We're getting a lot of interference. So Brett, my apologies. We cannot make out a single word you're saying. So we're going to move on to the next speaker and we're going to come back to you in hopes that we get to hear from you. Madam Clerk.
Scott Rafferty.
Good evening, Mr. Rafferty. Welcome.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to introduce myself as the attorney that has asked the city to adopt districts. This isn't a threat of litigation. It's a request that you comply with the California Voting Rights Act. And I expect the city to do that. I think you're making steps towards accomplishing that. And I hope it's done in as transparent a way as possible. It would be beneficial to have an RFP for the demographer, even if there is authority to do that as a sole
One
source
moment,
contract.
Mr. Rafferty. Ms. Becerra, please. Go ahead, Mr. Rafferty.
As I was saying, It would be useful to take public comment on the demographer and have an RFP, although it's possible that your city manager has authority to do that as a sole source. But I think that would increase the confidence of the community that it's going to be done on an impartial basis. The incumbents actually are fairly well distributed, which is fortunate for them because there is a kind of a strict hierarchy now of criteria that need to be followed. But I think it can be done. There'll be an open seat, of course, since Ms. Ramirez is no longer on the council. And I just wanted to encourage you to do it very transparently, to post comments and start a conversation within the community to do this in a way that will really serve Victorville well over the next decade. So I look forward to that process and cooperating and supporting in any way I can. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rafferty. The chair wishes to make note that Councilmember Gomez left the dais at 6:23 without permission of the chair, but did resume behind the dais.
Did you say
during
what
that
time I
same-
resumed? 30
Madam Clerk.
seconds? Would you like to place that on the record too?
Member Gomez has not been recognized. by
Yes,
the
30
chair.
seconds to kiss someone and tell them where they can sit because
A moment,
the
Madam
people in the
Clerk.
back could not find a seat and get them seated.
Madam
So you're
Clerk,
welcome.
please move on.
Keep targeting.
Our next speaker is Ramiro Rodriguez.
Welcome, Mr. Rodriguez.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
can,
hi,
thank you.
Romero.
Ms. Gomez was not recognized by the chair.
Neither were
nor-
you.
That's okay, that's okay, that's okay. I've had enough with all this and everything, all this meetings and all this yelling and
Mr.
everything. That
Thank
just
you, Mr.
distracts everything.
Rodriguez.
I'm talking to the council, so people can hear me, and I'm also talking to the city, so the city can hear me. I want to let them know what's going with downtown, with the popular meetings and all this demographers you guys are gonna use. It's gonna be the same thing. And by the way, the city is famous. We were on the newspapers and we were national TV for the investment fraud with the SEC and the airport. And when nobody went to jail, we just paid $20 million and $10 million to our attorney. That's what we got. We've got the famous. That's why we have only 4 people in our meetings, because they don't want people to show up to let them know what's happening. Just like last week, probably tomorrow, we're gonna have a meeting at 8 o'clock at night. They're gonna post it 24 hours in advance. That's how it works. In downtown, we have no art or nothing in downtown. Why? Because it gets in the way with you guys' pensions and salaries. And right now, we're gonna start arguing about salaries for the council members. What's enough? How much is enough for somebody that made $70,000 in just overtime pay when the city was on furlough? How much are you gonna give that person? What about the other person that sued the school board, the school children, and then the city? And that person got a lot of money. How you gonna justify how much that person's gonna make? $6,000 a week? We do have representation. And as the other gentleman said about we're missing one person, no, it's the same thing. It's gonna be voted 3-1 or 3-2. It's gonna be the same thing. It's really quick. They have to make the districts right now, because if you don't make the districts, you're not gonna get the mayor reelected. And that's for sure. You're only gonna have one person reelected, and we know who that is. So arguing and everything, that's just the ruse. And they love Blanca because Blanca distracts. It's not that she's distracting, she's calling them on. She's talking for the city. What I saw last time disgusted me. I saw 2 white officers beat up 2 Mexicans that were ordered by 2 white people in the meeting. And that's all I saw. 1950s all over again, or 1800s all over again. That's what it boils down to. We get more police officers for who? Do we really need them? We need council members that live here, that actually interact with the people. We never see these people on the street. The only thing we see at the homeless shelters is Blanca talking to the people and getting off their chair to have somebody sit down. Everything's a legality. Of course, the lawyer's going to say that, it's all fine, everything's legal and everything, because it fits their interests, but not ours. Wake up, city.
You have 30
Wake up.
seconds.
That's okay. You can give it to somebody else.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. And Mr. DePortnowski, it's been some time, but this speaker is making comments.
You're always
alleging,
targeting Romero. Always
lawsuits
targeting
and-
Romero.
And it was some months ago that there was a formal letter posted on our agenda if anyone wants to learn the real facts of that. Is my recollection correct?
That is correct. I believe it's still available. Anybody can ask for it. We can get copies of it.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk?
We're going to try Brett one more time.
Yes, thank you.
There you go. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Check.
thank you so
Test.
much. Thank you for your
Okay.
patience.
Okay, I'm going to be reading from a monologue from a YouTube channel. She calls her YouTube channel What's Her Face? It was uploaded last year in July. It has about 500,000 views. It's titled Why I Wear My Mask. Welcome to the Masquerade. And I quote, "Oh, my apologies. I was wearing my mask because I just got back from a full day of being a good person. I love my mask because it's a simple yet effective way to display my righteousness. Am I concerned that 2 children in China dropped dead because they were forced to wear masks in gym class? Nope. Am I concerned that we're creating a generation of children who will be socially awkward and conditioned to fear their fellow man? No. Am I concerned that I'm contributing to an impending socialist technocracy that will enslave the global population? Not even a little bit. Am I concerned that my mask is symbolic of my compliance to the social conditioning that will eventually lead to the forced vaccination of every man, woman, and child on planet Earth? Not a chance. And why am I not concerned, you ask? I'm not concerned because I decided a long time ago that shallow and insignificant gestures are a much easier way to showcase my morality than actually being moral. Because in order to be a real good person, I got to stand up to a real bad person. And I don't like standing up to or for anything. I've decided that it's much easier to trick my own mind into thinking compliance is a virtue instead of what compliance actually is, cowardice. I prefer to float through life completely ignorant to the fact that every socialist takeover has always begun in the exact same way, with government overreach, public shaming, censorship, and a toilet paper shortage. You don't believe me? Google toilet paper shortage in communist Russia. Did you think you were actually having a unique experience? I prefer to pretend history never repeats itself so that I can stand by and turn a blind eye every time history repeats itself. I prefer to call anyone who speaks up, fights back, or stands their ground a lunatic or a conspiracy theorist so that I don't feel obligated to do my own research. Research takes away from me time. And lastly, I prefer to put on my mask and stand among a sea of masks so that I never have to be seen, be free, or reveal the deep, dark shadows that lurk within me. End quote. I yield my time.
Thank you, Brett. Madam Clerk?
There are no additional speakers via Zoom at this moment.
All right, so as for our Zoom audience, and in accordance with AB 361, the Chair offers a brief moment to address technical difficulties should there be any. Madam Clerk, will you kindly set the timer for 30 seconds? And just to let everyone know, this is not a recess, so the council will remain behind the dais. This is just a new requirement that we have to follow in order to make sure that people have full access to their council meetings.
The 30 seconds is up and we do have one additional speaker.
Thank you.
Galaxy A12.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, and who do we have on the line?
This is Maggie Martin.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Honestly, I wasn't going to speak, but I got to tell you something. I'm sitting here listening.
Ms. Martin, my apologies. Are you going to speak to a particular agenda item or a non-agendized matter?
Not agendized. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
So I'm sitting here listening to this meeting and I'm like, is it a full moon out tonight? Because the crazy is out tonight in this meeting. And starting with first, foremost, last, however you want to put it, first and last, Council Member Gomez. I do not know what's going on there, but I want to commend, I'm going to have a problem with the name, Karima. I want to commend her comment, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm on board with what her comment was about keeping the personal stuff off the dais. So I don't I don't know what's going on there, but it's confounding and it's confusing to me to see a council member come in a state of anger and ready to go on the attack and the defensive at every opportunity. That's got to stop. That's ridiculous. That's high school. That's high school, Ms. Gomez. That's high school.
Ms.
You
And
will
Martin, please
address
your
the city
comments to the
council as a
council.
whole.
Member Gomez.
I
is
will
not
address the city
recognized and does not
council as a
preside over
whole.
this meeting. Ms. Martin, my apologies. Your time has not been taken from you. Will you please address your remarks to the full council?
Yes, and I will address them to the full council, speaking directly to that council through our mayor, not you, Ms. Gomez. So don't sit there and think you're going to correct me. So the other comment I wanted to make is about Mr. Rafferty. Okay, so I don't even know why he was on Zoom tonight. I don't see any purpose that it served whatsoever. He's come to Victorville, he's done his business, and in my book, it's time to say adios. Do your business, handle your business, and otherwise, me personally, I don't want any part of that, part of that person's agenda. So that's pretty much it, Madam Mayor. Thank you, and council.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Madam Clerk?
There are no additional speakers, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. With that said, the public comment period is now closed. Chair brings the item back to the council. Moving on to our first business in order this evening, which is the consent calendar, items number 1 through 8. Motion is in order for the council and the council acting on its various boards of directors to approve action on consent calendar items 1 through 8 in accordance with recommendations presented on the agenda. Is there a motion? Okay, we have a-
Second.
I have a question on a commercial demand.
Okay, so Member Gomez, the chair is going to allow it, but in the future, as soon as the item is announced, that's when you say, Madam Mayor, may I be recognized? I'd like to make a comment or ask a question on a consent calendar item.
You said
please
really
proceed.
fast.
Please proceed.
Yes, so the commercial demand, number 3. I was looking at the commercial demand spreadsheet of the cost incurred for approximately $76,000. I was wondering what dates, it just says through 7/31/2021. What is the start date and what is the cost alluding to?
I'm not sure exactly what you're speaking to, but there is a period of time identified specifically in the recommendation section on page 29 that speaks to the more precise time frame for which these checks were cut, which was September 8th through September 15th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. And for this, there's a description invoice 238456 for approximately $41,000. I was wondering what part of the city is that area covering?
Which page number are you on?
There's no page number. This is the actual City of Victorville commercial demand that I've been given for the last couple of years.
I can only speak to what's in front of me, which is the agenda.
Yeah, the
and-
commercial demand is also a part of it, which is part of the agenda. And if you can't answer it, that's fine. I just want to place on the record that I asked the question.
I probably can answer it if you just point me in the right direction as to what
Yes.
you're referring to.
So there's a description. It's an invoice 238,456 for approximately 41,000. And it alludes to LMADs that are being paid for. I think it's over $76,000. And I want to know what city that was the coverage for.
That would be for the city of Victorville.
Yeah, what area in the city of Victorville? Because it's not that 74 square miles. I know that for sure.
So if you described it as LMAD, that's likely one of 6 LMADs we have throughout the city. Those are landscaping districts that basically abut public right-of-ways and residential communities. So it's likely the various LMADs throughout the city in different locations.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted more clarity as to what area there's different LMADs. Thank you. There's approximately $2.7 million cost in public safety. Is that only for the month of July, the 2.7 million cost?
I would like to dig deeper into that because it's a line item just describing San Bernardino County. So I'm not sure from that if it's a check that's cut that includes costs to different agencies, different departments.
Understood. And last question, what are some of the marketing details that accompany the El Dorado broadcasting costs?
That I don't know.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. With that said, the chair invites a motion to adopt the recommendations laid out on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Or adopt or take action in accordance with that. Thank you. We have a first by Member Becerra, second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving. Madam
Other
Clerk,
way
please.
It was the other way.
The other way around. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez.
No for item 3, all the rest, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously with Councilmember Gomez voting no on item number 3.
Thank you. So the council and the council acting in its various capacities adopted the consent calendar, the recommendations in accordance with what's presented on the agenda. That said, we're going to move on to our next business in order, which is written communications, beginning with item number 9. This is vacation of a portion of Falling Star Street. Mr. Metzler, will you introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Yes, this is just to correct a request of a developer to vacate a certain portion of property that was dedicated, likely for a paseo abutting what was intended to be a public park. And it's not believed necessary by the current map owner as necessary to serve as a paseo. It's likely that could be used and folded in to help make the park larger once that park is built. So the request has come to vacate that particular area, and this item would effectuate that request to vacate. The author on this item is your city engineer. He's the one that's produced the recommendation, and he's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, will you kindly read the recommendation?
Staff recommends that the Honorable City Council adopt the attached resolution number 21-099 to vacate a portion of Falling Star Street.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're now going to move on to technical questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report. We're going to begin with Member Becerra.
No questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
Yes, for item number 9, the vacation of the portion of the Fall Star Street, why will this street no longer be improved as a public street?
Because it's not necessary.
So at one point, there was negotiations that it was, all of a sudden, it's just not necessary. Would you be able to qualify that? I just want a little bit more information as what not necessarily really means.
I can't qualify it any more than what I just did or what's in the staff report.
Okay, so not necessarily just means the city of Victorville said, we don't want this and that's our decision and it was discretionary?
No, in fact, my earlier description in introducing this item shared with you that this was developer request generated, not city.
Thank you for that response. Seems like there was an intent to improve this as a public street. And if it sounds like a repetitive question, you can say so, but would you please emphasize the word intent and improve? I just feel like we could have improved, but for whatever reason, we're not going to improve it. And you said something about the developer.
Right, the developer requested that this not be conditioned as right of way and that it would instead be used to serve as a portion of a park property.
I'm sorry, I missed the part where the developer what?
The developer requested that this be vacated and we're facilitating the request.
Okay, so does that mean that the city of Victorville, the public is missing out on improvements for this, this type of deal that we're voting on today in this item? I feel that that may be the case.
I would disagree with that.
I understand, but I'm not asking if you disagree or agree. I'm just trying to get a general census of, is the city or the Victorville residents perhaps being done in by not having something that would benefit them? If you could explain.
No, in fact, it's very likely that they'll benefit greater by having a reduced amount of traffic through that area. In fact, you're likely not going to get traffic through that area because there's not a roadway there, and you're likely able to get an enhanced, maybe even a larger, greater community park out of the property.
Yeah, Mr. Messler, I appreciate the explanation. I'm not trying to attack you in any way. I'm just trying to understand how I will be casting my vote, and that helps when you alleviate some of that explanation. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem
You're
Irving.
welcome.
Yes, just a basic question. Residents don't utilize the street at all, right?
That's correct. And my understanding is that the current status is that it's a paper street, that the track hasn't been fully built out, but might be best qualifying that or having Brian Gangler, the city engineer, talk about the existing status of this particular property.
But when I was asking, it wasn't rendered.
Member Gomez has not been recognized. Mayor Pro
I
Tem
don't
has
seek your
the floor.
recognition. I'm just placing it on the record. That's
Thank
all I
you.
needed.
All right, so we're.
Thank you, Ms. Irving, for calling it up, and
So
Mr.
the
Mesler
presiding
for
officer is
doing
going to
that. I
make a
appreciate it.
clarification for the record.
Yeah, I appreciate
The chair
that.
has to follow the rules for decorum for this meeting, and it's incumbent upon every council member to follow them. So for the sake of our council and getting their work accomplished, for the sake of our staff, and certainly for the sake of our community. So every member is required to have the recognition of the chair before speaking. And so in this case, Mayor Pro Tem Irving has the floor. Mayor Pro Tem, I apologize for the interruption. Please proceed.
I think you answered the question. You said, no, it's not being utilized by residents in the community. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I accept that. Thank you.
So Mr. Brian
Thank-
Gangler will not be explaining.
Member Gomez has not been recognized by the chair.
I didn't ask to
Moving
be
on.
recognized.
So now the chair invites a motion from the Victorville City Council.
So moved.
Would that be staff recommendation?
Recommendations.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a first and a second. I'm going to now move into discussion on the pending motion, beginning with the maker of the motion, Member Becerra.
We're basically voting to have a neighborhood park enlarged, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. No further, Madam Mayor.
Okay, comment. All right. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
No comments or questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez, on the pending motion.
Yes, of course, absolutely, all the time. I just wish to be treated with the same respect as Leslie Irving and Ms. Becerra
Member
do.
Gomez, we're talking about the
And
pending
yes,
motion.
I'm contextualizing it. Do you want to interrupt me again?
Member
I'm
Gomez,
saying what
proceed.
I need to say about the agenda item.
Speaking about the pending
Yes,
motion.
absolutely.
yes. Mhm.
So I would like the same level of respect from the city manager to have an explanation, because despite the fact that I'm one voter, I want to understand fully the way my council members do. So I appreciate Ms. Becerra saying that this is an expansion of the park and making it public, because it's not always elucidated, at least when I'm reading it. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Member Gomez, thank you. And the chair has
You're
no
welcome.
comment on the pending motion. Discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So the city council has just taken action in accordance with the recommendation presented on the agenda. Moving on to item number 10, this is the purchase of Cisco router and firewall. Mr. Metzler, will you tee up the item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Because of the increased demand for our network services, whether it be desktops, laptops, or iPads, there's been increased demand for effectively the bandwidth or the capacity that's available. And so to better serve all of our network capabilities, it's been identified that additional capacity is required to effectively operate all of these systems. So with that, there is an item before you that's been authorized by Mr. Frank Rich, your interim IT officer. And he's carrying this item forward as it would actually rely on some of the ARPA funds to help boost our broadband bandwidth capabilities. With that, Mr. Rich is available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, will you please read the recommendation?
That the city council award the purchase totaling $83,615.42 to Logicalus, Inc. for the purchase of installation of a Cisco router and firewall.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're going to move on to technical questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report. We're going to begin with Member Gomez.
Is this item considered a piggyback?
I don't believe it is. I'm sorry. There you go. Frank, please.
This item is purchased under a NASPO purchasing agreement.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I could barely hear you.
It's purchased under a NASPO purchasing agreement.
You said NASTO?
NASPO.
Okay. Who is Rich?
That's
I'm sorry, that's who?
that would be my last name.
Oh, okay, Mr. Rich, thank you. Will there be a monthly lease for this item?
No, there's
And how long have we been operating with 1 gig?
I believe we upgraded in 2016 or 2015.
And since we're going from 1 gig to 10 gigs, was there any risk assessment or cost benefit analysis, or how was the formula compiled to recognize that that was needed?
It's based on our current network traffic that we see through our internet connection and our connection through our offsite locations.
And is this something standardized that we do every year or every 5 years? Why now? Just wondering.
It's really based on need. At the time when we did our last upgrade, 1 gig per second was plenty. Since then, we've added, I think, 7 other offsite locations. So it's really a need base that we look at.
Okay. And the last time I remember we approved, I don't know if it was hardware or operations software update. Is there a reason why we didn't bring that item then, but we're bringing it now? Was it not possible then?
It's really just based on timing.
Thank you.
Staff is available to go through all of the reports that we need to look at.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Rich.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem
You're
Irving.
welcome, Mayor.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Member Becerra.
Mr. Mestre, Mr. Rich, would you say that our online payments have probably exceeded going 30% more due to us being closed when we had COVID, whenever they weren't allowed to come in? Would you say about 30%?
I would, just off the cuff, I would guess that would be a pretty good estimate.
So this purchase is going to not only help the city, but it's going to help the public when they do their payments online, when they come in to do their payments in here, when they do, when they pull a permit, things like that, correct?
Yeah, it'll help for any resident that uses any of our services. So whether it is a permit or, paying their utility bills or just getting information from our website, it will benefit them as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your team's work on this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And the chair has no questions on this item and invites a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, I believe, to adopt staff recommendation. Is that correct, Member Becerra?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And we have a second by Member Gomez. Moving on to discussion on the pending motion, beginning with Member Becerra.
No discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes, it's always important to remind the city council how these are interconnected with probably former ideas. That way our community knows that we're doing this for them. And that's why I ask certain questions to make connections for myself and for our stakeholders and stake seekers.
Thank you. And again, discussion on the pending motion. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
No discussion.
Thank you. Chair has none. Discussion period is closed. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Gomez.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So the council has just taken action in accordance with the recommendation laid out on the agenda. Moving on to item number,
11.
one moment. I didn't ask for the members' assistance. Okay, moving on to item number
I wasn't
11.
speaking to you. I was speaking to myself.
This is provider agreement with Harris and Associates Incorporated for assistance with providing affordable housing consulting services related to the calculation and analysis of residual receipts and subsidy request. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Yes, this item is seeking professional services that had been handled, or the scope of work had been handled by staff, but staffing has been constrained with respect to all of the other workload responsibilities that deal with this type of thing on the housing side of the city. And as it relates to the work for the successor agency here, these are dealing largely with either compliance or reconciliation type works of a number of apartment communities that have residual receipts loans associated with them. And it's been determined by staff based upon the workload analysis that this is best be performed by a professional consultant that can assist us in determining whether or not the residual receipts loans require repayment on an annual basis. So with that, this item has been authorized by your Deputy City Manager, Ms. Sophie Smith. She's available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk?
That your honorable city council, as successor to the housing assets of the former Victorville Redevelopment Agency and as the board of the successor agency to the RDA, approve a consultant services provider agreement with Harrison Associates, Inc. to provide affordable housing services related to the calculation and analysis of residual receipts and subsidy request, and authorize the deputy city manager to execute the agreement.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, technical questions for clarification as it relates to the staff report directly related to the agenda item. We're going to begin with Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Yes, I do have a question. Well, I see that this is an additional $14,000 to Harrison Associates, and I understand why we would entertain this consultant to do the work that staff once did, but the workload is so heavy, so we want to outsource it to Harrison Associates. I do have a question though. We have a number of agreements with this particular consultant firm. Do you know the total amount?
I don't off the top of my head, but that's certainly something we can report back.
Okay. Okay, so, I mean, I guess we wouldn't go out for bid for 14 grand. I guess I understand that. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Becerra.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
Yes, what is it that the city manager will be reporting back on?
If that question is regarding the question from Council Mayor Pro Tem Irving, I can provide back the total amount that's under contract with Harrison Associates. I believe that was the request.
Will you be providing that for the entire council or just for Mayor Pro Tem?
It would be for the whole council, Member Gomez.
Is that your understanding, Mr. Metzler?
That is my understanding, yes.
Because you never got direction from anyone and you didn't get a consensus. So I was just making sure that whatever you came out of your mouth, I understood as well. Thank you for that clarification. The next thing for the RDA, in 2012, I believe that the RDA no longer existed and it was dissolved. So I was wondering if the interpretation of the 50 grand that was authorized with the city required an extra 7 and 7 for these types of, I'm going to call them executions of agreements. Is that why this is coming forth today? Because your power of 50K wasn't suffice?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, were you going to add something? I felt like the tonality felt like you were going to add something. Did you say that's
No,
correct?
I'm agreeing. That's correct.
Oh, okay, okay. The other thing that I was looking at is, since is this HUD dollars that we're talking about right now?
No, they're former redevelopment agency dollars.
Oh, okay. So I'm a little confused. If that was resolved, how can we still have access to that? Or we still have access because we have these properties that we have to take care of?
So as a part of the redevelopment agency dissolution, successor agencies were formed basically to wind down the effects of the former redevelopment agency. Saying it differently, the successor agency is responsible for winding down the business affairs that the redevelopment agency once was in. And because it's impossible to basically close down a public agency like an RDA and not have any resolve to the outstanding work, that's effectively what we're serving as a successor agency, is trying to wind down the affairs. In this particular case, and why these survive, is because in this particular item, the agency entered into agreements with private developments, multifamily apartment communities throughout the town, and it's either 4 or 5 that I can recall off of the top of my head. And the RDA actually partnered with multifamily developments throughout the community to actually help finance the ultimate construction. And as a part of the financing structures for those apartment communities, there was a subordinated loan, or as what's referred in here, a residual receipts loan. Those loans have to get paid but they can't get paid right away. They still have to be, the agreed upon terms still have to be respected. So it becomes a successor agency's role to continue to administer those types of instruments, those types of loans in this case, and administer them until they're fully repaid or fully satisfied. So that is our role here, and that's effectively what we're trying to accomplish using the consultant, is to have the consultant now, instead of staff, continue to monitor these things and determine the appropriateness of when repayments need to occur so that we can service those loans that survive the dissolution.
And the 7,000 is going to be disseminated, 14,000 for Northgate Village Apartments, Impressions at Valley Center, and Rodeo Drive, which are 3 different apartments.
Yes, they are.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
You're welcome.
All right, just a couple questions. So I understood you to say that, part of this has to do with the workload and so forth, but my understanding was also that we don't have full-time staff dealing with these types of issues. It's a little bit of a niche area. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. We have to pull certain staff members off of projects to attend to these. So yes, we don't have full-time staff dealing with these like type things on a regular basis.
And would my understanding be correct to say that the reason we're doing this really is to make sure that we're meeting our fiduciary obligations in a responsible manner?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. The chair has no further questions and invites a motion from the city council as housing asset.
I'd like to move
successor.
that.
But the chair has not completed
I
her.
apologize. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. I appreciate that, Member Gomez. So the chair invites a motion from the city council as housing asset successor of the former Victorville RDA, the board of directors of the successor agency to the redevelopment agency.
I'd like to make that move as stated by the mayor. You read the recommendation, I suppose. Is that what you were?
So it would be staff's recommendation. I just laid out
Yes.
who is, has to make the decision. Thank you. We have a motion by Member Becerra. Is there a second? I mean, Member Gomez, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a first by Member Gomez and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving. We're going to begin with discussion on the pending motion by the maker. Member Gomez.
None at the moment.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Becerra. Thank you, and the chair has none. Discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra. Councilmember Gomez.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving. Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So the city council is the housing asset successor of the former Victorville RDA, and the board of directors of the successor agency to the RDA has taken action in accordance with the recommendation posted on the agenda. We're now going to move on to item number 12, entitled City Council Salary. Member Becerra, I believe this was the item you requested at a former meeting. Would you like to briefly tee it up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to the stipend pay that the city council receives, $943 a month is not changed, gone up, or been given any kind of boost since 2006, correct? Yes, 2006, November. As stated with all my other council members, there's a lot of places that we go on our own and things like that, that are our responsibilities to get there. So I just would like to make a motion.
Yeah,
that-
hold
oh, go
on.
ahead, go ahead.
So we have that report, the information before us that was requested. Mr. Metzler, would you like to share about that report with us?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Yes, based upon your request, what staff had done, and the staff particularly leading this effort, was your Deputy City Manager, Ms. Sophie Smith, along with your Human Resources Officer, Ms. Trevino, and they're both available for any questions or comments you might have. But based upon the request that you made of staff at the September 7th City Council meeting, we actually reviewed and provided for you the codes as they relate to council compensation, both guided by state code, but also municipal code. And then with that, we also shared with you a sample of the cities that we reached out to and were able to get information from the compensation and benefits summaries from those respective jurisdictions. And we provided that for you starting on page 145. A summary of what we offer as the city of Victorville, both in the form of stipend plus benefit, and also what the other jurisdictions that were interviewed provide to their council members. So with that, from staff's perspective, this is informational, but certainly any action is at the discretion of your honorable council.
Thank you. And with that said, Madam Clerk, will you please read the recommendation?
Any action is at the discretion of the city council.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, we're going to get into questions for clarification regarding the staff report. And Member Becerra, since this is your item, we're going to begin with you.
No questions for staff, it's all right there.
All right, thank you. Member Gomez.
Yes, I read through the small pages and I'm unsure of what the ordinance, and I call it an ordinance because that's what I saw it as, an ordinance. Perhaps it was a former ordinance and I'm confusing it for a new ordinance or a new resolution. So I was seeking clarity. I see two cities that are unrelated to the councilship of its members, and some of them are missing. I'm not sure why Orange County, what the city of Orange is what I meant to say, was being part of the measure. I'm just seeking clarity.
Well, just looking at the city of Orange, the best answer I can give you is that they're comparable in size. We're about 130,000 people now. So, and I think what the staff did do here is try to sample cities that were similar in size to us, similar in structure in terms of services offered. Because there's a lot of cities that do different things. We're close to full service. The only thing that doesn't qualify as full service is contracting out sheriff, but we have our own water department, we have our own airport, we have a municipal utility. And cities like ours can have different responsibilities from other cities that don't necessarily have those. So we tried to compare population and areas of responsibility for you to consider in this summary.
Thank you. And what was the formula? I don't know if you did a risk assessment, but my question pertains to what was the formulaic risk assessment that was taken?
There was no formulaic risk assessment done with this with this summary of information.
And I understand the proposal and who it was made, but for the sake of transparency, you notice that the proposal doesn't give the maker of who made the motion, although it was stated clearly who it was. I'm just wondering why it wasn't inserted within the reporting.
Well, first, I need to clarify that there is no proposal here in this item. This item is strictly from staff's perspective as being informational, responding to the direction of the council to provide that information. If the concern is more so related to having not including a reference to who asked for the item, then my apologies. That's an oversight on my part for for not making sure it was in the staff report. But certainly as we went through agenda prep, it was, we certainly knew, and that's why the item was handled the way it was upon introduction by the mayor and turning it over to Councilmember Becerra.
Just for the sake of clarification, I was using the term proposal, not in a term for contracts, but more laissez-faire, more trying to say informational based. So thank you for catching that. But my intent was not to put it on a contract. I figured someone put it on the table and it's considered a proposal in that manner. What was the rationale of placing this item on today's agenda? Was it an increase, a decrease? I just still don't understand.
Staff was requested by the council to put this item on the agenda.
Yes, I understand that part, but reading this, it's discretionary and I don't know how to read it, is what I'm saying. Are we seeking an increase? Are we seeking a decrease? I want just that clarity, or do we not know?
That is totally within the discretion of the council. That's for you to decide as a council if you want to do something with this information.
And does the council pay show the committee pay that's part of board members that were elected but sit outside? Was that not included? It looks like it was excluded.
I believe that's all included on the table for you.
When I say committees, like I don't sit in any committees, so I wouldn't get any extra money. but you have other council members that sit on committees that have other pay through the hat of city council election. Was it
Your
included?
time is up.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
You're welcome.
Mr. Metzler, did you want to answer that?
No, I can't answer that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving, questions?
Yes, I just want to make sure I'm following along. So the last time that an adjustment occurred was in 2006, and the formula for increasing would be, according to the ordinance, is not to exceed 5% for each calendar year from the last adjustment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just want to say thank you for doing a wonderful survey and pulling together the similar cities. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just have a couple of questions. So we have all of this information, and it was helpful for me to look at it because I can kind of see where other cities are, look at different sizes and kind of what they're doing. I mean, we have from really one extreme to the other, where City of Orange has 0. And then there are other cities that have a monthly stipend much in excess of Victorville. But government code, correct me if I'm wrong, government code, regardless of what stipend, I know that we can't go over the maximum that is set. I think it's 19.20 and 6 cents. Knowing that we can never go over that, at least that's my understanding. Even if the council, any council, not just this one, anyone going forward, were to seek an adjustment upwards, it doesn't mean that an individual council member has to personally receive those monies. Any council member can refuse to receive the money.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Okay, and again, and how long has it been since
2006, I believe.
2006? Okay. All right, and I have no further questions. And so since this item, Member Becerra, belongs to you, did you wish to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, I motion that the stipend for the city council of the city of Victorville be moved to $1,200 a month after the 2022 elections in December. Correct, Mr. Dobrowski?
Correct. It would not be effective under any of your terms. It would be after there was a reelection of any of these council members.
Okay. That's my motion, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion by Member Becerra to adjust the stipend upward to $1,200 a month and becomes effective according to law, which is after the 2022 elections. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a first by Member Becerra, second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving. We're now going to move into discussion on the pending motion, beginning with our maker. Member Becerra.
No discussion, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
No discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Member Gomez, discussion?
Yes, I would have loved to see a little bit more workshops and what the people's opinion was into an increase. I don't know that we should just move on something like that without having at least one other workshop for more civic engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. And the chair has no discussion on the pending motion. Discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra.
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez.
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 13. This is consultant professional services provider agreements for transitioning from at-large to district-based elections. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Since the council took action on September 27th to adopt a resolution of intent to pursue the transition from an at-large election system to a district-based election system, staff's been in a mad scramble to try to execute on first bringing on some professional assistance necessary that's beyond our expertise, and that being qualified demographer that has experience in these matters, but can also help the city in navigating the public hearing process, also navigating the community workshop process. And so with that, at the time that this item was authored and placed on the agenda, we had not secured a firm we were still in the process of interviewing and reaching out to. And since the council approved the resolution of intent, we in fact reached out to a total of 13 firms. It wasn't easy to get a firm to even respond, but we were able to make contact with 13, and in large part it's because of all the redistricting, recertification of districts because of the decennial census that's occurring. But that notwithstanding, we have identified a firm, and we have a kickoff meeting tomorrow to begin the process. But even with that contract, and I expect to sign the contract tomorrow, purchasing authority is required to be able to execute that contract. And so this item is placed before you to do two things: provide the purchasing authority for me to sign a professional services agreement, but also to appropriate funds that can be used to help facilitate for items beyond what would be provided for in the consulting agreement with the demographer. Some of those types of costs could include additional legal costs from experts from outside our areas of expertise, and also other costs associated with things like supplies and printing and things that would help support the promotion of our community workshops. So with that, that's all I have on this item. Certainly available for any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk, will you please read the recommendation?
That the Honorable City Council adopt Resolution 21-012 to appropriate $200,000 from the available fund balance in the general fund to the City Clerk's Contract Services Fund for fiscal year 2021-2022 for purposes of funding services of a demographer, legal fees, and public outreach for the transition from at-large to district elections. And 2, authorize the city manager to execute agreements for the services listed above in the amount not to exceed $200,000.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, we're going to get into technical questions for clarification as it relates to the adoption of the resolution as stated on the agenda. And Mr. DeBortnowski, I just want to make sure that my understanding is clear before we start receiving questions. So this item is as it relates to the resolution, the council at some future point, and Keith, this would be for you as well, is going to get into the nitty-gritty as to what the particulars are and what that process is going to look like, and in terms of transparency and outreach and so forth. So this is just related to the resolution to give proper authority to move forward.
That is correct.
that
This
fair?
just
All right.
gives Keith the ability to retain consultants that will then provide all of that transparency and all of that information.
Yes, thank you. So with that in mind, council members, we're going to get into questions for clarification as it relates to the resolution posted on the agenda, beginning with Member Gomez.
Yes. Is there a reason why we decided not to do a request for proposal on this item?
Yes, there is, and I would answer that with two reasons. First, given the time frame that we're working with, we're under a tight time frame to perform, and the CVRA only provides us with 90 days from the resolution of intent to actually adopting the ordinance and the district boundaries. So that is a part of the consideration. The other part of the consideration is that it's not uncommon, for professional services to not rise to the level of a full-blown RFP, but instead do an informal solicitation, which is what we did in this particular case. And we believe that was the right path to pursue. It's actually proven more successful in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here, and that's to expediently get the most qualified firm. And having been able to reach out to 13, we certainly believe we had enough conversation with those firms to believe we made the best selection that likely would have been yielded through a much longer drawn out RFP process.
How many people were involved in the selection of this firm?
Quite a few, actually. The minute the council approved the resolution of intent, we had an all hands meeting starting on the very following day. And so I've had at least 5 or 6 staff members involved. thus far, including, not including legal counsel. Legal counsel would be additional.
With the 5 or 6 that were involved, were any of them also considered Hispanic, of Hispanic descent or maybe of color so that they would contribute to that decision? Do we know?
You're asking me if any of my staff are
I-
of a certain
I would-
race or ethnicity?
I was asking if any of the 5 or 6 that were involved in making this decision for this firm, were any of them of Hispanic descent or any of them of color to contribute to what we're doing today for a vote?
I was,
So one person?
no more, but I'm only going to speak to Wraith. I'm not, that's not a conversation I'm going to have with you.
Okay, no worries. I'm just asking for the benefit of the public. How long does it take for an RFP to take place typically?
Oh, an RFP process could take easy 45 days.
That's the shortest we've seen it?
That's a good estimate of the quickest we could do it.
Okay. Did the demographer that's going to come work with other cities in the high desert?
Say that again?
Did the demographer that's on this item, did they have experience working with anybody in the high desert?
Um,
When I say working with, I mean doing the same CBRA.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And in terms of the experience that city staff had, what experience or competence or qualifications was placed to off-put the RFP, but bring in the employee to make sure that they're doing the best? I know they're not experienced, but I'm just asking.
I relied principally upon our director of finance, who serves as the expert in our city as to the purchasing code, and relied on his expertise to advise us that this was in fact an appropriate way to pursue bringing on professional services.
Okay. And so far, what has the city done in terms of employee time and how many hours have been expended for what we've done so far?
Sorry, can you rephrase that?
Am I losing time?
Please proceed, Ms. Gomez.
That means yes. If you don't understand my question, I'll just proceed to the next one. What qualifies a demographer to respecting the map submitted by the people of Victorville versus the incumbency security maps?
I would answer simply by what I've seen as a tremendous amount of experience, having done this for a wide variety of cities up and down the entire state of California.
I'm sorry, would you repeat that? I felt like, did you say you have experience in this?
No, I did not say that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, would you repeat? I misunderstood. That's why I'm asking to you repeat what you stated.
I was speaking to the experience of the firm, and the experience of the firm is what drove our decision. Their experience having done this on multiple occasions for multiple cities up and down the state of California.
Okay, and the $200,000, do we already know what it's going to go for? That's going to cover the cost of the employees who have been working with it in conjunction with what we go forth from today on?
The $200,000 will not be used for city staff time.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Member Gomez.
You're
Mayor Pro
welcome.
Tem Irving.
Yes, I have a couple of basic questions, and one of them comes based on the dialogue between the city manager and Councilwoman Gomez. We haven't made a selection, have we? Or we have made a selection of what? consultant-
I have made a selection. I'm prepared to sign.
Oh, okay, so I understand why this didn't go out for bid. The rationale makes good sense to me, but I am curious. Did we have a rubric for the selection, or were there key criterion used? And I'm raising this issue because my general concern is that we maximize public engagement and the public participates. And if so, I'm curious what distinguishes this particular consultant, what strategies or what are the proposed strategies that this consultant will use to engage the public and conduct public outreach. What is our expectation? Are they going to guide us through it? Or are we going to give them some guidance? Because that's where I'm curious.
And that's a large part of how we approach this. Certainly in our reviewing of firms that provided these kinds of services, we certainly found some firms that were just focused on the statistical demographic analysis, where what we were looking for, and we were fortunate to be able to decide early on, in the perfect world, we'd like to find somebody that can basically turnkey this for us.
Right.
And turnkey for us is more than just the basic services of giving us the demographics and the recommendations as to suggested maps. Turnkey for us was start to finish, with heavy emphasis on community outreach. In fact, in the contract that I'll be signing, we're actually adding optional services to that base level of service. And the biggest part of those optional services that we're going to be adding to it are public outreach, including adding additional community workshops above and beyond the 5 hearings that we're required to do. What the fun challenge for us is going to be is scheduling those actual community workshops in between those hearings, so that we have the opportunity to cast a very, very, very wide net in trying to involve all of our community members, as much of our community members as possible. So they will be taking the lead. I definitely don't expect, based upon my knowledge and of the experience of this firm, that we're going to be guiding them. They're definitely going to be guiding us. And we've actually positioned the staff with the team that we've put together thus far to be a supplemental resource to them, to the extent we need to do even additional, such as perhaps putting together custom postcards that we can, or maybe door hangers that we've done for like pop-ups in the park and things like that. We're prepared to provide additional resource to the extent they're not covering that in their optional, just so we can do everything we possibly can to engage as much of the public as possible.
Okay, I asked that question because I just based on the background of all of this and how this came before us, I would assume they're going to do, or this consultant would be doing some racial block analysis, but I'm curious about the methodologies in that analysis. I don't know if you're at liberty to share that, but I'm curious about it. So
Yeah, I think at this point that goes a little bit beyond the scope of this.
it may,
particular
but I was
agenda
just
item.
expressing my
But
concern.
those are, yes, and I think
Right.
those are conversations
Well, I
that
want
we,
to just put it out there. So,
need to have going forward. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank
Yes,
you.
certainly,
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem. All right, and the chair has, excuse me, Member Becerra, questions?
Mr. Metzler, another reason why the RFP didn't go out, are we under a 90-day deadline?
Yes.
And the deadline can only be extended by the attorney that wrote the letter, correct?
That's my understanding.
And
yes.
for him to extend it means he's going to want, how do I put this? More of a payment to him would go out, correct?
My understanding is that if you're alluding to the 30,000, is that the 30,000 gets stayed if there's an agreement to extend the 90 days, but I'm going to defer to Mr. DeBornowski.
That is correct. It's up to the plaintiff's attorney to determine whether or not to grant the extension, but he'll still be capped at the $30,000.
And we haven't had an inkling that he's willing to give us an additional time. That's why we're under the gun to get this thing out prior to the 90 days,
We've
correct?
previously asked, but today he has not been agreeable to do that.
He's not.
Correct.
Okay. Let's get it done. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Member Becerra. Chair has no questions and invites a motion.
Motion to approve staff's recommendation for.
Yes, staff's recommendation. All right, is there a second? Chair seconds. Going to get into discussion on the pending motion, beginning with Member Becerra.
No questions. Thank you very much.
No
sir.
comments, okay. Chair has no comments on the pending motion. Member Gomez?
I'm sorry, did you say my name?
I did.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned. We've had 5 years. RFP was very viable, 5 years to look at this, nothing new. Rendering cities have done it. We need an RFP to go out, transparency and public engagement to make sure we have the appropriate persons who are interested. That's my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
You're welcome.
The only question I have, and I continue, I'm curious about the
Okay, so
criteria used.
Mayor Pro Tem, so right now we're doing comments on the pending motion, but if you have an important question, absolutely.
It would be.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm just going to make a statement then. It would
Sure.
be lovely if I understood.
You can ask
the
a
main
question for sure.
criteria used for the selection? And I'm curious about it because I'm concerned about the methodology for the analysis, because to me, all of them are flawed, but I'm curious about it, and that's what I need so that I can be in agreement. Thank you. You don't have to answer it, but I'm just sharing my concern.
If it's questioning as to the methodology, I mean, I think I articulated it in that we were looking for something more than just a demographer, somebody, a firm that is full service, that has extensive experience first dealing with municipalities. There was a lot out there dealing with education as well. But one that specializes in working with municipalities. This firm that we're working with, that I intend on bringing on tomorrow is a firm we haven't worked with before. It's a firm that I believe is certainly a leader in these services. They're actually, it's a firm that's actually active in one particular community, working in a matter that is involving Mr. Rafferty. Actually, the selection was in large part based upon the team, not just my particular recommendation.
Well, let me ask a more pointed question. With regard to the selection team, right? I don't think that you got any particular direction in terms of who we might be looking for from the council. Did you have any participation from any member of the council?
In the selection process, no.
The selection team.
Did I have any participation?
In other words, did a council member up here sit on the team that made the selection? No, that's
No.
what I'm asking you.
No.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. And just Mayor Pro Tem, so you would know that would be inappropriate for a council member to do that without without an appointment from the
I know
council.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so we're all clear.
Yes,
Okay.
for sure. So I'm going to, because now those questions have now caused me to want a little bit of clarification. So Mr. Metzler and or Mr. Deportnowski, so demographers, I mean, tell me what requirements they have to be who they are. Is there state licensing? Do they have to pass certain tests? What allows them to do the business that they do?
Keith, do you want to answer that? I'm not sure there's a specific qualification other than they are experts in dealing with population analysis.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have extensive degrees. I would assume probably a master's degree, but I'm not sure what the qualifications in terms of the educational qualifications are of this firm. That, it's a specialized art, and experience is going to be critical with respect to that.
And this, is it fair to say that this company, this company has, you said that has done work up and down the state with numerous cities, and does that include school boards as well?
Correct. They've done a lot of work with school boards, I
Okay.
believe.
And do we have any reason to believe that any of those cities or their constituents have been concerned with their work?
No, in fact, we've got positive feedback from some of the communities that we discussed, the services that they performed.
Okay, and in your discussions with this company, were there any red flags to you or anything that gave you reason to pause in terms of those discussions about the work that the city needs done?
This firm stood far apart from all the other firms.
Okay, and can you tell me about how many firms you talked to?
We talked to 13.
13.
We reached out to 13.
13, okay. All right, that's all I have. All right, with that said, the discussion period is now closed and, excuse me, I'm sorry, with that said, Madam Clerk, the discussion period is closed. Madam Clerk, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Becerra. Aye. Councilmember Gomez.
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Thank you. So the council has just taken action to adopt the recommendation laid out on the agenda. We're now going to move on to item number 14, which is city manager reports. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. I think first, just as a follow-up to our special meeting last Thursday, and certainly again, thank you for acting upon having that meeting with us so quickly. But having resulted from that meeting, we're able to submit the application finally today, and I've been advised that that application has been received by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. We were the 7th application received by them for all applications of the state. So believing that they're going to hold true on considering everything on a first come, first serve, we got our application in fairly early. So I wanted to share that with you. And then had some updates. Here they are. On October 9th, which is a Saturday, we have a low-cost dog and cat vaccination clinic that's put on by our Animal Care and Control Division, 8 o'clock to noon here at City Hall. We have a couple of engineering items, Industrial Boulevard and Silica Drive. Paving has been tentatively scheduled to begin on Saturday, October 9th, and throughout the following week. That project is expected to be completed by the end of October. Green Tree Extension Project work is continuing on the false work over the BNSF Railroad. Work is also continuing on the foundations at the end of the bridge. A major project out at the airport that we've discussed previously. It is the Amazon Fulfillment Center that is located on the west side of SCLA. We actually issued on September 30th building permits for that particular facility. So that is moving along full steam ahead. And then finally, we have Community Cleanup Day on Saturday, October 23rd. The deadline to sign up for that event is October 13. We're looking for volunteers, and volunteers are provided with gloves, litter sticks, trash bags, t-shirts, and coupons for discounted lunch at a variety of Victorville restaurants. And more information about that can be found on our website. That's all I have at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. All right, moving on to item number 15. This is discussion and possible action regarding upcoming agenda items. Member Becerra, any requests?
None. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Any requests?
Yes, I move to motion expenses that were expended from the September 22nd to 24th Sacramento trip that was paid for by city tax dollars for the travel lodge of Mayor Deborah Jones and Councilmember Becerra, except for Councilmember Gomez. I wish to be compensated by the general fund in the same manner that they were. I use my own personal funds.
So the chair is going to rule that motion out of order as the council has already weighed in on that and did not provide that travel authority or payment or reimbursement of it. Do you have any other requests?
No, that was my only request.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Irving?
None.
Thank you. And the chair has none. I'm now going to move on to item number 16, and this is reports from council members, beginning with Member Gomez.
Yes, so I went to Sacramento. It was a good trip. I got to reinstate with a lot of mayors and a lot of California council members. The very interesting part was I did a lot of videoing, and when I was doing videoing, Deborah Jones called the guard to try to put me on check, and that was funny. I learned a lot about the importance of networking. I was at the Latino caucus, the importance of making sure you interconnect with a lot of populations who may feel that they're disengaged. I was able to tell over 30 of my colleagues up there about this situation, and they just could not believe it. But I have so much support with a lot of people in high positions that were elected in many different cities. And I was just overwhelmed with the amount of love that I received. And in that fashion, I was able to share again a lot of issues that were happening here, how we could address them. As a matter of fact, I had some of my colleagues videotape a few of the meetings because I didn't go in. I didn't have the money to actually go in and pay for that. So I stood outside, literally outside of not going into the conference because I'd rather save that money to directly go with you and write notes against what's happening. And so I did that. And there was one where the Mayor Jones was really wanting to boot me out, and she's on the record. So it's just really intriguing how the amount of support and the amount of love that I was able to get from there, and I was able to share with a lot of them. And it was just unfortunate. A couple of things were unfortunate, but some of them were caught on video. I did see Mr. Metzler and the attorney when they saw me shocked, just as when Ms. Becerra saw me shocked. You can see him outside planning how to try to kick me out, which is really interesting. But that's my report. I still represent the people, and I'm so proud of having so much love exerted outside of these four walls in many various cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Gomez. Member Becerra.
I actually sit on the VVTA board. One of the public mentioned about the bus drivers. The city of Victorville does not hire the bus drivers. Are hired by a company called Keolis. They're responsible for the drivers and all of that. So they are offering through the contract with VVTA. So the benefits that they're offering to them is out of the control of the city of Victorville. We are not sitting on a board to say, let's give them all this money. Keolis themselves is offering this to their employees. We discussed it. And yes, if you know when you are licensed to drive a bus, get with VVTA and they're hiring. So that's the only one I got. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Member Becerra. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Yes, gee, I can't remember the date. I think it was the 25th, or I can't remember. But anyway, I just wanted to say I had an opportunity to attend the ribbon cutting for the Heritage Victor Valley Medical Group open house for their new Fit House gym. It's a really nice facility, and the programs that they have there for mainly our seniors, very, very nice. I think one of them was called the Brain Train or something. I can't really recall, but I had a wonderful time, and I just want to say congratulations. And if you get a chance, I understand that you can go by in the month of October and it's open. So if you get a chance, I think you should check it out. The other thing is, what is it, next week on the 14th, we have our first public hearing. I just want to say that it's so very important that we have community participation. Come out, be a part of this, because it's a really big deal. So with that, I just say good night and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, so I have a few reports. I did attend the League of California Cities Conference, and I was there also to vote as a delegate, as I was directed to do so by the council, and all of those issues I did vote in the way that the council directed me, although one ended up being a little quirky, because on the issue of divvying up the tax revenue on fulfillment centers in cities, that the council took a position that we were going to vote yes on the resolution that at that time was being put forward. However, the resolutions committee at the conference decided at the last moment to send it back to committee so that city managers could provide additional input. So because I didn't have any flexibility to change the way I voted, I actually had to vote no on something that I personally favored because I thought it was reasonable, and yet I had to honor my council's wishes. So I voted no in order to vote yes, so to speak, for that resolution. So, and then as it relates to that conference, any council member, when they're not authorized by the council to go, is free to attend those types of things as a council member. Member Gomez spoke somewhat accurately, although she misrepresented much of the situation for sure. My concern is this.
It's all on video. Watch my Facebook. You'll see it.
Member Gomez is out of order. There's much that goes into planning those kind of events, and the League of California of Cities had a responsibility to all of the council members up and down the state to make sure that when they attend this conference, they're safe and so forth. So everyone that was in attendance was required to upload their vaccination records. They had to sign a pledge that they were going to wear masks and all of those kind of things. And so Councilmember Gomez did
that's untrue.
Find her way into that.
I have where
without
people
wearing a
did not
badge, without
do the
paying for
vaccination.
event,
So
and
you
did not put
misspoke.
the vaccination record. So that was my concern. And security was supposed to be watching for people wearing masks and badges. And I just merely pointed that out. That was part of my duty to
She's a
help protect my
bully.
colleagues.
You
All right,
hired a
so
bully.
Member Gomez is out of
Bully,
order.
bully, 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 bully,
I wish the
bully,
spotlight-
bully, bully, bully.
Recently and formally recognized by Senator Scott Welk among four honored for their vision, leadership, and significant contributions to Senate District 21. In his words, he said, "It is a pleasure to recognize these trailblazers for their achievements and accomplishments. And as we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, it is important to point to individuals whose hard work and heart have made this region stronger and better." So, and as we all know, our Mayor Garcia was the first Hispanic woman appointed as mayor of Victorville. So congratulations to Mayor Garcia. Finally, Veterans Day is just around the corner, and I'd like to say how pleased I am by our local businesses who chose to honor the memories of our 13 fallen soldiers in Afghanistan. The team at Olive Garden, Victorville, continues to salute them with a very patriotic table set up front and center in their restaurant. And when my husband and I walked in recently, I was in awe and completely overwhelmed with pride for our city. Thank you, David, Craig, Annabelle, and all the employees and veterans who work there. These kinds of things make me so proud of our city. Tomorrow is this State of the County address, and I believe many of us here will be attending that. With that said, that concludes our business for this evening. And as a matter of housekeeping, all council members, staff, and audience members will kindly vacate council chambers and City Hall within 10 minutes. That's 7:54 p.m. so that these facilities may be cleaned and secured for the evening. Members of the public are not permitted behind the dais. Good evening, everyone, and thank you.